As of the 1st of November, anyone who is a director of a company needs to register for a director's identification number. To do that, we'll go through in a sec, but just before I go that, if you were already a director before the 31st of October, you've actually got until November 2022 to do this, but I do suggest that we do it straight away so that we can mark off that it's been done and we don't forget. If you set up a new company or become a director between the 1st of November 2021 and the 4th of April 2022, you've got 28 days of your appointment to actually create this. But from the 5th of April 2022, you actually need to set your director's ID up before you're appointed a director. And I'm assuming that they'll be set up in our software that when we add you to ASIC, we've got to add that to start with. So the process is to set up a Mygov ID and then to link that to ASIC. So let's have a look at how to set up an ID. And basically what you need to do is you need to download on your phone or your smart device the Mygov ID app. Then we've got to go through following the prompts. You've got to enter your full name, date of birth and email address. Keep in mind that this email address is relevant to you and not necessarily the company that you're related to. So if you do have a personal email address rather than a company address, you may want to make it that, because this will travel through time with you. If you are to sell your business or your company or close the company down but have another one, you still need this ID, so you need to be able to access it. So for instance, my GovID is set up with my personal email address, not my Victoria@HBA Encompass email address. When you go through this process, you'll need to set up a 10-digit ID. Make sure you write it down somewhere or something that you can remember. You're also going to need some personal ID, so a driver's license and a Medicare card. The app will actually talk you through the process and you just need to scan it, which is pretty amazing that it actually works, quite frankly. Just be careful when you are scanning your Medicare card to make sure that it's got the right reference number, because obviously there is you and your family on there, and it depends on who is first. It'll automatically pick up number 1 and you'll need to manually change it to number 2. When you are setting these up, there are a couple of strength identities that you can choose. Standard really doesn't give you anything. You will need your driver's license, your passport, or birth certificate. If you want to go stronger, you can add additional ones or a photo. Then from there we need to go to Mygov ID for Business to set it up. So once you've set up your Mygov ID, you actually need to set up what they call a RAM, which is a Relationship Authorization Manager with the ATO. And to do that, you need to be what they call the principal authority, which is basically a director or partner of the business. Of course, you're going to need some ID, and then we go and set it up. Once you've set up your Mygov ID, we actually have to log into the RAM. Now, the RAM has a specific email address, and basically it is info.authorisationmanager.gov.au/hash/login, which you can see at the top here. Once you've done that, you click the login with Mygov ID and you'll put your email address in. Once you've done that, you go to your Mygov ID app, because it'll come up on the screen with the code. The screen on your computer will have a code, the screen on your phone will have a code, so we click on accept, and then it takes you to a page that looks like this. What we then need to do is to link your business. Okay, from there you've got to phone 1300 287 539 and select option 3, and you'll need to provide personal details to get identity check. A bit of an irritating process, but unfortunately we're going to have to ring the tax office and go from there. This process can take a time. We just called for one of our, well, a client who's here with me called, and they're going to call us back in more than half an hour. So once they call back, we'll continue the process from there.
So as we mentioned, the steps to getting a Director's Identification Number, or DIN, is to set up your Mygov ID first. You want to make sure that you've got some documents, so you're going to need your tax file number, your residential address by the ATO, and sometimes they're going to want 2 documents to verify your identity, which could be something personal from bank account details the ATO have on file, or an ATO notice of assessment. So it's not a bad idea when you're going to go through this to be prepared to call HBA Encompass. Our staff can actually look that up as we go, just to make sure that you're right to go. So once you've done that, step 3, which is to complete your application and to apply now. And the first thing that they want to do is that you're either currently an eligible officer or you intend to be one within 12 months, which means that you're basically a director of a company. So you've got to tick it that yes, you're eligible and that you acknowledge it, that you meet the requirements of the Corporations Act. Then we hit next. So we have to put details in of there. So they're going to need your, being by another name. They want your place of birth and the state. Then they want your residential address. If you want a postal address which is different to your residential address, we have to set a new one. Contact details. Your email address, and then we hit next. Okay. So then we review to make sure that we're correct. We check all our personal details to make sure that they are correct. And then once we are correct, we hit submit. Once that is done, it gives you your Director ID number. Now, what we are requesting is that you actually print this or save a PDF and send it to HBA Encompass, because once you get into this, it's a little bit harder to get the details done. So it's just a matter of saving it. And then once that's done, you can do a printer-friendly version, which is the same thing. So once that's done, it's done. And from there, you need to provide that detail to HBA Encompass and River Accounting so that we can easily add it to ASIC records, remembering that if you're an existing director, you have until, I think it's April next year, whereas any new companies that are set up, you've got 28 days until the end of April, I think it is. And then after that, you need to have it beforehand. So quite an easy process.